Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. I'm diving in to a take that Bills fans will love to hear me discuss. Josh Allen wins AFC Player of the Month as his 2020 takeover continues. Year one, he was learning. Year one, he was running for his life. Year two, he gained his confidence. And year three, he is taking over, and his takeover is pretty substantial. As you see on the Thomas Take ticker, you see the stat line. Allen's 2020 stats, 1,038 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, one controversial interception, to say the least. One interception that should not have been an interception. But I want to dive into what I have seen from Allen the last 3 years, mainly this season, being that we're living in the now, but providing a brief recap on the first and second season of Allen's career, but mainly discuss Allen's three best traits as a quarterback and discuss the chip on Josh Allen's shoulder. Yesterday, I had Tilt Money David Tilton of Buffalo Fanatics, the Bills guys, on the show. We talked about Josh Allen's chip on his shoulder. But I want to dive into it at least heading into this season. 2020, let's say, it's safe to say, but let's just say it. We'll just say it. 2020 has sucked. 2020 has been an awful year for all of us in our own way. But in particular for the NFL, the offseason preparation has not been nearly the same. Josh Allen has had to deal with probably, as I would assume most quarterbacks do, a ton of stress being the face of the franchise, but being the face of a franchise during this unprecedented time, this unprecedented offseason. And I look at that simple fact, and I look at the stats of Josh Allen thus far through the first 3 games of the season. We still got a long way to go. But through the first 3 weeks of the season, Josh Allen has been phenomenal. He has looked fantastic physically, mentally, emotionally. I think he has been fantastic. There are a few things that, can be tweaked as always. He's not a finished product by any means, and he would admit that himself. But Allen has been arguably the MVP of the NFL through the first 3 weeks. Through the first 3 weeks, the Buffalo Bills 3-0, sitting atop the AFC East. You can't name one game of these last 3 weeks that Josh Allen hasn't played a major part in, obviously throwing for 300 yards, 400 yards, 300 yards. The guy has been on fire. And the offensive strategy, which was once a run-oriented offense, which was pretty vanilla, has dramatically changed due to the progress that Allen has made and due to the progress of this Buffalo Bills front office in bringing in weapons for Josh Allen, like Stephon Diggs, like John Brown, like Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft. In particular, this offensive line, which I think has been fairly decent since they brought in guys like Mitch Morse and Deion Dawkins, more than worthy of the extension that he received. He has looked fantastic this season. Kept my eye on Deion. Great guy, awesome guy. And watching that offensive line perform at the level that it has, Deion Dawkins has been a big part of that, protecting the blind side of Josh Allen. So you already know that Deion Dawkins deserved that extension. So I want to dive into what I believe are the three of Allen's best traits as a quarterback that I have noticed throughout the last 3 seasons. Obviously, number 3, we'll start off with number 3, his mobility. Allen, as a runner, has been such a dynamic weapon. And we know about dynamic weapons at quarterback, guys that can move, guys that can extend plays. Maybe Lamar Jackson is the best at it. Maybe Kyler Murray has something to say about that. Maybe Pat Mahomes has something to say about that. But in terms of Allen's mobility, watching the tape, checking the tape of Allen's career at Wyoming, I knew that this guy could extend plays. But I did not know how, for the lack of a better term, ballsy Josh Allen is in terms of his scrambling mobility. This guy is more than willing to initiate contact. This guy is more than willing to run someone over, hurdle Anthony Barr, stiff arm Kyle Van Noy, And sometimes that drives me a little bit crazy because I'm watching the game and I know that Josh Allen has MVP caliber skill. So in turn, I think, well, if Allen got hurt, this Bills season would drastically change. The outlook on the season would dramatically decrease in terms of positivity. I believe it would, right? I don't think that's an outlandish thought. Nothing against Matt Barkley, but Josh Allen is the real deal. This guy is a franchise-altering, franchise-changing quarterback. And if you were to go down due to this willingness to initiate contact, due to this willingness to stiff arm or pancake pretty much pancake a linebacker or a D-back or a defensive back on the Rams this past week. You know, he stiff armed. I posted it on Twitter. It lit up like a Christmas tree. So the fans love it. You know, we get energized by that when Josh Allen, makes it through those plays. I know I do. I'm watching the games at bars and friends' houses and stuff like that normally. And even moments, these past couple of years when Allen would make plays like that, I would think, holy man, this guy is really special. This guy is really something. He's a go-getter. That's I said ballsy, but for a PG term, he's a go-getter. He likes to make it happen. And number two is obviously his arm strength. This guy has the weapons now that can fit like a puzzle piece. With Beasley, the slot guy, John Brown, a guy that can stretch the field, and Stephon Diggs is one of the best contested ball-catching receivers in the league. And what a welcome addition Stephon Diggs is to this team. A lot of Bills fans, when they first heard the news of Diggs being traded to the Buffalo Bills, they thought, maybe we gave up too many picks. Maybe we did give up too many picks. Maybe we should have held on to some of our picks. I remember thinking to myself, this is a player that we needed. We had to go get him by any means necessary. I mean, this was a guy that was drastically a cause, a reason as to why the Minnesota Vikings offense was so successful. And there are a few receivers like that can come in, make an immediate impact, and Stephon Diggs has done that. I was a little bit worried that Diggs would not come in and make an immediate impact, and I'm not saying it due to the fact that I doubt Diggs' skill set. Obviously, you guys know that I love Stephon Diggs, but just in terms of the fact that there was no offseason, there wasn't a true training camp in the sense that a normal training camp, everything was kind of hodgepodge, awkward, weird, rushed. At one point, those guys all met on a football field somewhere in California and were just throwing the ball around. It was a weird offseason. Not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. And for Allen to get in unison with those guys, for Allen to initiate this, hey, we have to have some urgency in terms of our preparation. That to me illustrates, I believe, Allen's best quality, and it's the most important quality I think that a quarterback could have, and that is my number one best trait of Josh Allen as a quarterback, and that is his leadership. Allen as a leader has grown tremendously. I remember hearing rumblings of his leadership back to his days at Wyoming. He was a leader at Wyoming in terms of understanding his talent, galvanizing his talent, knowing that maybe the football program wasn't as notorious as Alabama or Notre Dame or Clemson or some of the bigger schools, but to somewhat rise above that and just harness that talent and say, hey guys, let's really make this happen. We're all talented. We can make plays. Wyoming did fairly well with Allen. Obviously, he picked top 10, picked 7th overall. He had a pretty decent college career. There were moments of improvement where he needed improvement, but those moments have been developed. Those moments have been improved upon throughout his first 3 seasons as the member of the Buffalo Bills, as the Buffalo Bills quarterback. And I will say, obviously, Brian Daboll does get credit for that. Ken Dorsey gets credit for that. There's been moments where I'm left scratching my head at some of the play calls that Daboll has had, just in terms of, certain situational play calling. But I won't doubt at all that Allen has improved tremendously. From year 1 to year 2, there was a jump, and now year 2 to year 3, there was a massive leap in his progression. So I have greatly enjoyed witnessing this and somewhat saying, hey, I told you so. Out of all the guys that were in that 2018 draft class, Josh Allen was the guy for Buffalo. And it sometimes doesn't get said enough, but these teams draft quarterbacks because, yes, they need one. But these teams draft quarterbacks as well to fit the franchise, to fit the city, to fit the fan base. And few quarterbacks checked off every single box for Buffalo. Josh Allen was the only one that did. And, I always wonder, if Darnold got passed by the Jets and the Jets, took Josh Rosen or Lamar Jackson, would Buffalo have taken Darnold? I don't think they would have. I think Josh Allen was the apple of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott's eyes during that whole evaluation process. I think McDermott really wanted Allen. I think Beane wanted Allen. And it was a unanimous decision that no matter what, they were going to go up and get him. There was talk that they were going to move up to 5 to take Josh Allen if they had to. If Denver wasn't taking a quarterback, which ultimately they didn't, I bet they're regretting that. They took Bradley Chubb instead. And, I think that if you are living in hindsight 2020, pun intended, John always got to be thinking, man, I should have picked Allen. What the hell was I doing? I like Drew Lock, but, Josh Allen is much better currently. So let's get to some comments. Michael Geray says 100% facts. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the endorsement. Greatly appreciate it. Got a nice family in that photo there. Says D-Hawk, let's go Bills. I am just so excited for the rest of the season and so pumped to see the maturation process continue within Josh Allen's game. And I think that this game in particular, there are some little areas I think that Buffalo could really expose the Raiders defense offensively. And I want to see Devin Singletary get the ball more via the passing game. That was something that I said in yesterday's show, and that's something that I'm saying today. No doubt about it. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Greatly appreciate it. And as far as Allen, I think that this guy is only going to get better. Maybe he'll be one of the elite quarterbacks, in a year or two. And that's goes back to what I said, a couple years ago. Allen might not be great right away. We'll see highlights, flashes of his brilliance. Year 4, year 5, though, this guy will be not just taking part, but taking over. Josh Allen is a top 3 fantasy football quarterback. I got asked the blasphemous question, should I drop Josh Allen or should I trade Josh Allen? Am I too invested in the Buffalo Bills? I try not to invest in Buffalo Bills for fantasy football purposes. I don't want my fandom getting in the way of my fantasy or my fantasy getting in the way of my fandom. But I took Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen back-to-back 6th and 7th round in a league, and I have zero regrets, it's safe to say, through the first 3 weeks of the season. James Parsons says, hate that we are going up against a desperate Raiders team this week. Hey, we got to take on who we got to take on. One week leads to another. One step leads to another. The Raiders, I think, are the perfect test for these Buffalo Bills, actually. Darren Waller is going to be a big test. Josh Jacobs is going to be a big test. These next 3 weeks, the Buffalo Bills face some really solid running backs. Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, being 2 of them. I think that we're going to see this Bills run defense continue to get tested against the Las Vegas Raiders. And I almost said Oakland, but I didn't. I'm thankful I didn't. And obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So you got Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 3 consecutive weeks. That's a gauntlet. That's a tough, and there's 3 different running backs too. No, not one of those 3 guys is the same. The style that they play is completely different. So we'll see what happens. But I think that this will be a great game, no doubt about it. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. My name is Ryan Thomas, obviously. You guys know me. I've been hopping on these podcasts, doing live visual podcasts for like the last month now. The support has been tremendous. In terms of watching these podcasts now, you can watch them on Facebook, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, on YouTube, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, as well as my Twitter, at Ryan Thomas Take. Thank you so much for tuning in as well. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. and Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take for all things Thomas Take Sports Podcast. A lot of guests coming up in the next few weeks. Sunday's morning show, we will continue the fantasy football trend. I will be having a guest from my fantasy football league, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Fantasy Football League. 3-0 Samuel White without Saquon Barkley. Pretty awesome that he was able to pull that off. Michael Gerace says, thanks, Ryan. Thank you, Michael, for tuning in. And go Bills. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.